Imagine your entire world changes overnight. What if you found yourself at the center of a tragedy that shook the entire world? The story of Maris Ellington is not just a tragedy, it's a shocking investigation that exposed the hidden secrets of massive oceanariums and the mysterious forces behind them. Why did her death lead to such massive changes? What are the real reasons behind the tragedy? And who was involved in this dark conspiracy? If you want to uncover the truth and dive into the deepest, most chilling mysteries of the ocean, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We'll bring you even more jaw-dropping stories that will make you see the world differently. Maris Ellington dreamed of working with marine animals since childhood. She wasn't just fascinated by orcas. She saw them as nearly mystical beings, powerful, intelligent, enigmatic. At 17, she landed an internship at Ocean World Marine Park, a dream come true. Over the years, she became one of the most respected trainers, and an orca named Kumo became her partner, her friend, and to many, almost family. Audiences cheered when Maris stood on the nose of the giant animal and effortlessly dove into the water from its back. Their performances felt like magic, a dance of trust between human and predator. But behind that enchanting picture was a disturbing reality that many preferred to ignore. In recent months, Kumo's behavior had changed. He became nervous, sometimes aggressive, and refused to obey familiar commands. Fellow trainers noticed, but park management dismissed it. The show generated huge profits, tickets, merchandise, a flood of tourists. Canceling it was unthinkable, especially for a duo as popular as Maris and Kumo. Maris urged the park to give Kumo a break, to let him rest, but her requests were denied. On the day of the tragedy, the audience was larger than usual. It was summer, a holiday, sunny weather. Everyone awaited the performance. Despite her unease, Maris came out to the pool with a smile. Everything seemed normal. Command, jump, applause. But when she dove into the water to approach Kumo, he didn't respond to her signal. She tried again. Suddenly, the orca turned sharply and struck her with his side. The crowd thought it was part of the act. Laughter, claps, phones in hand. But within seconds, it became clear something was terribly. Kumo grabbed Maris by the arm and began spinning with her in the water. Other trainers rushed to the pool, shouting commands, sounding alarms. But it was too late. For 2 horrific minutes, in front of hundreds of spectators, a scene unfolded that would later be called one of the most terrifying incidents in marine park history. Maris's death sent shockwaves. Footage of the incident spread across the internet. People who once admired her work now asked, should such animals be kept in captivity at all? Why hadn't the show been stopped despite the warning signs? Why was she left alone with an orca whose behavior had become erratic? There were no answers, only pain and outrage. For many, Maris became more than a victim. She became a symbol of the disconnect between humans and nature, between the thirst for spectacle and the lack of understanding of the wild. But that was only the beginning. After the tragedy, Ocean World immediately shut down its orca shows. Public outcry was fierce. Experts, ecologists, and former trainers came forward with accusations. Some claimed that Kumo had shown dangerous behavior before, but was still used for profit. The park's administration remained silent, citing the ongoing investigation. Yet Maris left behind more than grief. She left behind something vital, her personal diary, which her younger brother Luke discovered while going through her belongings. Inside were entries about strange events behind the scenes, Kumo's aggression, secret late-night training sessions, and a person she only referred to as Kay. Luke was stunned. He knew his sister didn't trust many colleagues, but he hadn't expected this level of tension. In one of her final entries, Maris wrote that Kay made her do things she considered dangerous. She felt Kumo was on the edge. that the animal was breaking down. She wanted to go to the media, but feared losing her job and being blamed for damaging the park's reputation. Luke began his own investigation. He uncovered security footage that had never been made public. One video showed an injection being added to Kumo's pool hours before the incident, allegedly for preventative care. But the most shocking discovery was this. In a recording, Maris mentioned that weeks before her death, during an evening training session, Kumo had tried to drown her. Only the intervention of another trainer had saved her life. No one was told. The administration ordered everyone to stay silent. The trainer who rescued her was offered a large payout to resign and disappear. Luke found this man. His name was Pavel. He lived in seclusion in the suburbs after his dismissal. At first, Pavel didn't want to talk, but when he learned that Maris had died, his hesitation vanished. Pavel revealed that the park had long used forbidden training methods. Some animals were under sedatives or stimulants. He had personally seen Kumo lose orientation and then go into a rage, attacking other orcas in the tank. After each incident, Kumo was punished with isolation and forced drills. Maris was the only one who tried to fight the system, but she was intimidated. Once, someone even left a dead bird in her car as a warning. And now all the pieces fit into a horrifying puzzle. Kumo didn't just snap, he was pushed to the edge. Someone knew what might happen and did nothing. Or worse, someone wanted it to happen. Luke began to suspect that his sister's death was not an accident at all, especially considering the final line in her diary. If something happens to me, know this, it wasn't Kumo, it was those above him. After speaking with Pavel, Luke could no longer sleep peacefully. His heart was filled with rage and fear. Had his sister simply been used as expendable material? He began collecting evidence, videos, diary entries, Pavel's testimony. But the deeper he dug, the more he felt someone was watching him. Several times, he noticed a strange black car near his home. One morning, he discovered someone had broken into his mailbox and taken documents. He realized he was getting too close to the truth. One evening, a woman called him. Her voice trembled. She didn't give her name, but said she had worked at Ocean World and that Maris tried to save us all, but they silenced her. Before hanging up, she whispered, "Look into Amber's case. She was the first." Luke immediately began searching for any trace of a girl named Amber and found her. Several years earlier, a young trainer named Amber Hart had died in a pool with a different orca. Officially, it was her own error, but her case was full of irregularities. The video of the incident disappeared, witnesses were fired, and her family stayed silent. Luke contacted Amber's mother. At first, she didn't want to speak. Years had passed, but the fear still lived in her voice. But when Luke showed her Maris's diary entries, she broke down in tears and admitted they had paid her to stay silent. That's when Luke realized this wasn't an isolated case. It was a system, and his sister had become its latest victim. Moreover, he discovered that just days before her death, Maris had tried to contact European documentary filmmakers interested in exposing the conditions of orcas in US marine parks. But none of her emails had received a reply. Perhaps they had been intercepted. That very day, Luke decided to break into the park at night to retrieve the security footage servers. Pavel told him that some of the data might still be in the archive if it hadn't been wiped. Using Maris's old access badge, Luke entered the building. It was empty and oppressively silent. As he approached the server room, he heard footsteps. Someone was already there. He hid and watched as a man in a security uniform unplugged cables quickly and efficiently, extracting hard drives and placing them into a bag. But the most shocking part, when the man turned around, Luke recognized him. It was Kay, the man Maris had feared. His real name, Carl Andrews. A former military officer, he worked at the park as head of animal security. But in truth, he enforced discipline and handled problematic incidents. Luke realized Carl had known he was coming. Now, Carl was trying to destroy the last remaining evidence. Luke tried to escape, but Carl saw him. A chase began through the dark complex. Luke barely got away, losing his backpack. But he managed to snap a photo of Carl with the hard drives in hand. Now, he had the face of the man responsible for covering up the truth. But was that enough? And who else was involved? After escaping the oceanarium, Luke felt he was closer than ever to the truth, but the danger was now very real. He reached out to the press. A few independent journalists agreed to hear him out. But as soon as Maris's name and her records were mentioned, most refused to go further. One of them anonymously sent him a message. They control everything, even the ones who are supposed to be on your side. Be careful. Realizing he couldn't do this alone, Luke contacted a former park technician, Alexei Melnikov. Alexei revealed that he had been in the surveillance room the night Maris died. According to him, the camera focused on Kumo's pool suddenly cut out exactly 1 minute before the incident. Later, the footage was replaced with a test file. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone knew what was going to happen, and when. Then came a twist. Alexei gave Luke a flash drive with fragments of archived footage he had secretly saved on his personal drive a year earlier. Among them was a short clip, not from the night of Maris's death, but from her final rehearsal with Kumo. In it, the orca is clearly not responding to Maris's commands, but to an ultrasonic signal coming from the side of the pool. It was a covert training system based on suppressing the animal's will. Maris had never approved of its use, and perhaps that's exactly why they wanted her gone. Luke began to suspect that Kumo might not have simply attacked Maris. He may have been deliberately triggered. The animal she treated like family may have been turned into a weapon. But who would dare do such a thing, and why? The answer came unexpectedly. One of Oceanworld's former investors, a man named Roger Bream, contacted Luke through an encrypted chat. He was no longer affiliated with the park, but he knew a lot. Roger revealed that years ago, the park had begun experimenting with a new aggression control technology for marine mammals. But in reality, the system wasn't used to protect trainers. It was used to create high-stakes performances with maximum dramatic effect. If an animal disobeyed, it was punished through an implant. Maris found out about it. She threatened to expose the truth, and they eliminated her. Luke was in shock. He compiled all the materials, video evidence, testimony, documents, and diary entries, preparing to submit them to the media and law enforcement. But then the final twist occurred. One day, he received a video on his phone. The quality was low, but he immediately recognized it. Kumo. The orca was lying motionless on the water's surface, and 3 people in white lab coats were leaning over it. One of them said, "He no longer responds to the cleansing protocol, but it's been activated." Cleansing protocol. That could only mean one thing. Kumo had been terminated. He was killed. For Luke, this was the last straw. He realized that if he didn't go public immediately, others would die too. But what happened next surpassed even his darkest suspicions. Holding the flash drive with the video evidence, Luke prepared to make his decisive move. He knew his life was in danger. He had already faced several attempts to intimidate him, but he couldn't back down. Every step brought him closer to the truth. And now, he was ready to expose all the secrets hidden beneath the water. He passed the information to journalists. And soon the news about Maris's mysterious death and the conspiracy at Oceanworld exploded worldwide. But that was only the beginning. Luke had no idea that behind his back, a darker scenario was already unfolding. As the investigation gained momentum, Luke discovered that nearly all the evidence he had collected was disappearing from public access. Someone high up was interfering, and now the proof was vanishing as if by magic. At first, he thought it was a technical glitch. Then he realized they were trying to erase him. The first to vanish were his witnesses. Alexei, who had told him about the hidden cameras and implants, suddenly disappeared. His house was sealed off. Luke was sure this was no coincidence, and that's when everything turned upside down. One day, as he sat in his office searching for any clue, a stranger came to him. A man in dark glasses, with a face that spoke volumes, but a strangely sincere smile. He said Luke had one chance to save his life, but only if he dropped the investigation. This man wasn't just a threat. He was part of the very system Luke was trying to expose. He made an offer. Step back and you'll live. Keep going and you'll vanish like the others. But Luke wasn't ready to give up. He knew that if he backed down now, everything he'd done would be for nothing. And then, at the most critical moment, when it seemed his world was about to collapse, Luke found an unexpected ally. An old colleague from past investigations came to him with a revelation. While digging through government archives, he found information about another project, even darker and more terrifying. It turned out that Ocean World wasn't just hiding the true cause of Maris's death. They had been working on developing hyper-intelligent orcas for secret military programs. Kumo was just the first experiment. Maris had gotten too close to uncovering the truth. But the most shocking realization? Luke understood that he himself had been part of the game. By stepping into the investigation, he had become a pawn in the hands of those behind it all. He had been under surveillance from the start. Now his fate depended on what he chose to do with this knowledge. The world Luke thought he was fighting for, a world of truth and justice, was far darker than he had ever imagined. But no matter how hard it was, he knew one thing: he had to see it through to the end. The final moment came when Luke decided to take his last step. Hiding from pursuers, he handed all the evidence to an international animal rights organization. As a result of the massive investigation launched a few weeks later, the truth about the cruelty in aquariums was finally revealed. Several people died in the process, including Luke himself. But his death became a signal, a call to end it once and for all. Yet one question remained: was even a single orca saved from captivity? And so it ends. The story is over, but its consequences remain open for reflection. What do you think about what happened? What would you have done in Luke's place? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next video.